All the best. I think we can begin. Hello and welcome everyone to another Power Pack discussion on Be Waste Wise webinar. As most of you all know, I'm Akanksha Singh. I'm the community builder at Be Waste Wise. And a brief intro on Be Waste Wise. We're a non-profit organization and we've been bridging this global waste solutions expertise gap for more than 10 years now. And if you see the value in making such diverse sustainability dialogues such as these available free of charge to anyone and everyone, then request you all to please support us on our mission. We will encourage you all to please check out our website and donate. We'll be sharing the link to the donation page over the chat as well. We are happy to host an all-female panel on our forum today for this webinar as we celebrate International Women's Day week this time. We are happy to have few of the women who manage, make decisions, and create and reinvent this industry in our session today because we want to support them. And we are grateful to you, Emma, our moderator today, for frequently facilitating such insightful discussions with women in this industry on our forum. Like today, we have Alice Reckley from Polytag and Inge Florin from Checkpoint Systems. Emma is an independent climate and sustainability expert. She's an Innovate UK assessor, straight talking sustainability podcast host, founder of Lighthouse Sustainability, and also a carbon literacy consultant for one of the fewer than 12 in UK. Emma, along with the panel today, will explore how can RFID and digital product packaging improve traceability, compliance, and sustainability across the packaging and waste management ecosystem. Before we proceed to this exciting discussion, there are a few important announcements. This webinar is recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and on our website. We request you all to please use the Q&A function for your queries to the panel and the chat function to share your insights, your views, your reports, your comments, and for networking separately. Back to you. Over to you, Emma.
Thanks so much. That was a lovely introduction. And yes, I am really proud to be hosting an all-female panel on International Women's Day week, month, year. I think we're going to make it now. I'm so sure I heard it was International Women's Year now from now on. Right. So welcome to my host and welcome to everybody who's here. We've got a 40 odd people joining. I'm so impressed with the range of countries that people have joined from, actually a little bit blown away. So use the chat as much as you can to connect with each other. Yeah, here's a safe space for you to share your links and your projects, whatever you're working on. So Akanksha set us up nicely there. I've picked a topic that I know very little about. So I brought two experts in today. So I'm here to learn as much as you guys, because one of the things I think that's frustrated a lot of us working in circularity for, well, 30 years, I guess, maybe longer, is traceability, is getting materials back, is low recycling rates, difficulty with reuse. We all know there's value in materials, but where are they on the planet and what are they worth? So Inge and Alice, welcome. You're going to help me answer these big questions today. Inge, you're global product solution manager. So this is great that we've got such a global audience. I'm going to come to you first. You're working with a company called Checkpoint Systems. You're based in the Netherlands. Can you tell me a little bit about what RFID or digital packaging means to you in your world?
So, as you said, I'm working for Checkpoint, so we are an RFID solutions provider, and from my end, I'm responsible for the RFID product development. So, any type of RFID tag attached to a packaging, attached to a product, even embedded into a product for any type of industry, is where me and my team are joining efforts with some of our customers and that those are product producers, those are packaging producers. So I'm both of them. In order to facilitate the transition into RFID or adding RFID. And what does the digital packaging mean? With RFID, you're creating an additional data carrier that can give companies more data than that you can distribute on a packaging, for example. And I can already immediately tell you RFID is my world, but it's always a combination of technologies between the packaging industry, between the producers, between the brands. And I think that's why it's a very nice collab that we have here together with Polytech, who have the other end of the spectrum. So we are from a electronic, how to say it, electronic digital technology, where can tell us a lot, and I hope will tell us a lot about all the possibilities that we have from the printing side, to say it like that.
Brilliant. Okay, that's fabulous. Thank you, Inga. And Alice, let's come to you then. How do you fit together? What does digital packaging or RFID mean to you?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. It's really exciting to see where everybody's dialing in from.
Isn't it?
Certainly wasn't expecting it to be quite such a global list of attendees. So yeah, I look forward to the questions later. Polytag, we are a platform solution that uncovers insights for our brand clients about where their packaging is, how we can support them with optimizing their supply chains, and also to build trust with consumers so that consumers feel like their packaging is being handled responsibly and there are opportunities for us to genuinely make packaging circular. So yeah, it's great to be here. And as Inga said, we very much focus on printed tag solutions or laser etch tag solutions. And we don't do any work in the RFID space, although we are often featured on packaging formats alongside RFID solutions.
Nice. Okay, brilliant. Well, I'm really pleased. My ignorance has played out here because I've chosen two people that have just brilliantly come with different views on the topic, which is great. Akanksha, could you just pop up the first poll, because Alice said something there about consumer awareness, and we are going to just look at that. So I just want to engage you guys in the audience. Just putting this out there, what do you think the most important success factor for RFID and digital product packaging is? Now, this will be interesting because we're obviously coming at this from all over the world. What is the critical success factor?
Can we vote as well?
I'm not sure if you can. What would you vote for, Inga?
Well, for me, from an RFID perspective, it's product and packaging design, because we always say RFID needs to become part of the DNA of a company if they truly are moving on to the RFID space, because RFID is a technology, and the technology always has its limitations, and RFID has some natural enemies. So for them, it's much more important that somebody who designs a product or a packaging understands what is important if we want to work with RFID, make that packaging work with RFID. Good example, for example, at this day and age, cosmetics. They all like shiny, glittery packaging with metal foils. Well, metal is a natural enemy of RFID. You cannot just stick an RFID on a metal packaging and it will work like that. So those are the things where we have some discussions. And that's why for me, for RFID, not per definition a digital product packaging, but for RFID, that product packaging design team needs to become aware. But I think that's in general for sustainable materials use from the company.
Yeah, it's usually a big one. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Well, the audience is right on track then, because Inga, the highest. It's a really big split, and maybe I chose generic kind of topics, but really big split. But product packaging design is coming out the highest on the poll. Alice, what would you choose if you were able to vote?
Well, I did vote, and I voted for supportive legislation and regulation, actually, because I think the question is quite interesting. It's asking for success factors, and you've then got to think, well, why would any company bother introducing RFID or digital product packaging into their range? And actually, most of the time, this introduction of digital tech to packaging is in response to a legislative challenge and or a need to make action commercial, for there to be a commercial benefit for doing it. I mean, it pains me to say it because I'm an idealist, and I just think if you can make economy circular, you should just do it. But clearly it doesn't work like that.
No, it's
there needs to be a commercial lever to get businesses to adopt this kind of technology. And most often we find the commercial lever comes from response to policy and legislation.
Yeah, I agree. But what a nice kind of proof is that you obviously need more than one thing. And I overheard somebody on a panel last week almost say without thinking, of course, if we didn't have to do it, we probably wouldn't. So they were calling for legislation of a level playing field. I'm going to carry on in that vein, Alice. Actually, look, we'll just close that poll down. I'm going to carry on with that because you talked about, are businesses ready, or do businesses want to embrace this? So what's your where are we at, I guess? What's the appetite for this kind of technology? Would you say it's very embryonic? Are we just waiting for one more thing to make it mainstream? Where are we at, Alice?
So there's two answers to this question. The first adoption driver of this kind of technology is coming from legislation, particularly packaging management at end of life. I probably need to defer to the audience for the complete global view, but just the UK, we've got EPR, we've got deposit return scheme, we've got digital waste tracking. There's the plastic packaging tax, and then you broaden out and you look at Europe, we've got PPWR and all of the associated regulation coming in there. You look over to America, we've got SB 54, SB 343. Like, there's absolutely loads of legislation either being enacted or being enforced globally, and it's not slowing down. And I think anybody that's working in this space today can recognize that there is going to be a growing need for businesses that deal in predominantly single-use packaging to have some way of defending their record of using single-use packaging responsibly and managing the end of life of that packaging in a way that is more circular. And so that's where Polytag can help. But the other effect that we are seeing in terms of adoption of our solution, and Inga may also agree, is large businesses forcing a change on the market. So not connected to legislation, but businesses recognizing that digitizing packaging does deliver all sorts of commercial benefits, and builds trust with consumers, and can help to provide confidence at point of purchase with rich information, for example, that you can deliver through these tag solutions, and also a sort of transformation that's happening in the supply chains all the way down to point of sale, where 2D codes and RFID tags are actually now the tag of choice to enable supply chain optimization. And the stripy barcode is dying. Sorry about that, but the stripy barcode is on its way out. And businesses who are moving to the next generation of QR codes, RFID tags, have identified huge benefits that can be unlocked across, as I said, supply chain optimization, but also building consumer trust. And so, there's a market movement as well, where there are commercial outcomes that is also driving the adoption of these solutions.
I think indeed what Alice says about that change of market, the perception of brands, and it's just the next generation who's much more conscious about the environment, sustainability, and they are forcing these brands to comply. And that complying first starts with information sharing. Where does the product come from? What is it made of? How can I use it? How can I reuse it? How can I recycle it? All these types of things. So it's that push from the current generation of people that are requesting this from the market. And then you have this legislation, which it's both. They need to support each other. So if you have that push, the legislation needs to be able to support it. If you do not look at the technologies, RFID never started out as a technology to support these initiatives. In theory, it started all out as a technology for most of the retailers, if I'm talking, for example, retail, but also in other sectors where we see it, to identify products quicker without a line of sight, so that you can do easy inventory. You know where your product have without seeing it, without counting it. And from there, it evolved into a technology that helps you with your supply chain management because you know exactly from which location it's shipped, where is it produced. You have better visibility on how much am I producing. In the past, everybody did overproduction because they didn't really know what they used, when they used it, where they
Stock
used it.
control, yeah.
And then it ended up, and especially in apparel, I think those brands that are already on RFID for that first part that I just said, just want to know where stuff is, they are now starting to use the technology to fulfill some of their sustainability goals, their reuse, recycle, reduce waste goals, to say it like that. So it's like it was never intended to be a driver for those things, but we are seeing that, well, it's there. So why won't we use the fact that it's gathering and collecting data of your product worldwide, and with that data we can help you improve your supply chain, but also your waste management.
Yeah, everyone, every circular project I've ever worked on, the data is key. It starts off being quite a manual exercise of how are we going to get people in the shop, how are they going to refill, whatever, there's, how are we going to get this thing back, all very manual. And then towards the end of the project, it's very much the data is what we're here for, and actually what we're selling in some cases. So that's fascinating, and I love where you came from then, of kind of the history of RFID and what it was designed for. I also think, to your point, Alice, again, circularity has so many wins. It's kind of one of these win-win-win things. And I think for those of us who are in it, it's really obvious. But it's a bit like climate, win-win-win-win-win, or taking action on climate. But when we're talking to other people, that isn't just that, it just isn't that obvious to people. So we have to go in with these kind of multi-layered win sheets, if you like. Great. I'm going to touch on the global bit because both of you obviously mentioned that, and I know we've got a brilliant global audience here. How does a global brand deal with consistency across all these different countries, different markets, different products, different infrastructure? Have either of you, I'm just going to open this up, have either of you got experience of a brand that is either doing that well, or maybe you can tell us how, the challenges of that?
Yep. I mean, there's a very straightforward answer, I think, to that challenge, which is we have to adopt global open standards. And
right. Okay.
Before I set up Polytag, I was working for GS1. And for those people who don't know, GS1 are the global standards agency behind the barcode and behind all sorts of other tag formats, data matrix, QR codes. I think they do also make a contribution to the RFID space, but the principle the principle behind GS1 Global Open Standards is to enable circular economies. I mean, I don't think that it was set up with that aim in mind 50, 60 years ago. But the reality is that unless every actor in a circular supply chain is talking the same language and is able to deliver interoperable systems, we're all holding hands, so to speak, unless that is true, you cannot enable circular economies. And so everything that we deliver at Polytag meets GS1 Global Open Standards. We've been a proud partner of GS1 for the last 5 years, and we work very closely with a number of key member offices around the world. So, but for us, it's very simple. We've all got to talk the same language, even though we're operating globally, and GS1 standards are absolutely non-negotiable for effective circular economies.
Yeah, absolutely. Inge?
Fully agree. As said, GS1 has also created several RFID encoding standards. So as long as everybody understands that standards and uses that standards, it doesn't matter from which label producer it comes, from which brand that RFID or QR code comes. Everybody in the world can read it and use that information, the data that it gives them in their own processes. And it also, using those standards facilitates global brands. I mean, if you're a global apparel brand, but you have to fulfill with different standards in different markets or countries, for them it becomes very difficult to do a global supply chain. but also to switch products from one market to the other market, because that sometimes happens. A product doesn't sell in Spain and then it's moved to Italy because there it might sell. But if you have to change your packaging at that moment because they have a different standard.
Yeah, it's not
So
going to work.
not only in these encoding standards, barcode standards, but I think that's where the biggest issue, the legislation, I think that's why it was one of the biggest poll answers as well.
Yeah.
Legislation is now different in every region and
Yeah.
different in every country.
This is what worries me.
It's very difficult for a company, a big brand or whatever company it is, to fulfill all requirements in every country.
Very costly.
Super costly, and that's also where we as an RFID label supplier sometimes struggle, because in some countries the RFID label is allowed to be recycled with household paper or the household plastic because tests has been done and they pass with the label. But then in another country, it's not.
Right. Yeah.
So how can you then differentiate as a brand owner or a company from region to region if you operate globally? So it's always a joint effort, but legislation and more global. I mean, we talked about the EPR. Is this a global standard? Every country, and even in Europe, every country interprets it to its own desire to say it like that.
Yeah, good. And a couple of things coming through here on the chat. Sal is saying, and talking about an event actually. He was. They were saying the QR code was always the answer. The world was needing to catch up. Consumer engagement in education. So when we layer on, we're 20 minutes in, and just what we've talked about here, that the different facets that need to come into play here, the legislation which we've discussed is inconsistent across the world, the need for product and packaging design clearly inconsistent or maybe left behind, the need for consumer engagement, the need for the business case. There's a lot that has to come together almost at a global scale. I'm wondering if the challenge is too big. So I don't want to focus on the negatives, but Alice, how far away are we from cracking this? Because there's a lot of moving parts. Is it going to happen in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? Give me a view on that. Is it going to switch like that overnight? What do you think?
Well, they say always eat an elephant one bite at a time. And I think that if you look at one particular bit of policy that I think is of interest in this case, I'd point at digital product passports, which are being introduced over 12 sectors initially. And then as those sectors adopt digital product passports and find success, and I'm sure find commercial value as well about communicating product detail directly to consumers in their language and in real time, there will then be a case for adopting in other sectors beyond just those first 12.
Can you give us an idea, Alice, of some of those 12? It's not a test. You don't have to reel them all off, but can you give the audience an idea?
Textiles is one. I mean, Inga, I'm sure you're working closely with a lot of textile brands, but textiles is one. Small electricals is another. Tires, surprisingly, perhaps another one. So there's really furniture. There's quite a broad range of categories that are launching first. And I think the thing that possibly gets missed when we talk about digital product passports is actually digital product passports were primarily introduced or being primarily introduced to support with end of life. So yes, there's a lot of really interesting information that you can gather about upstream supply chains, like where was it sourced, was it sourced responsibly, how many miles has it been shipped, etc., etc. But really, once the consumer gets hold of that product with its passport on it, the most useful information that businesses can make sure is available is, what do you do with this thing you've bought when you don't need it? And there should be some really interesting and useful information included in a digital product passport for reuse, repair, refill, recycle. so that we can empower consumers with confidence to make the right decisions with those products at the end of life. And
literally closing the loop, isn't it?
literally, yeah. And businesses should take that chance and think very, very carefully about, well, you know, if I'm putting this product onto the market and I don't actually know what I'm going to say about the end of life bit of this product behind the digital product passport, you should, let's chat.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And actually, you know, again, different markets. And I think, you know, those of you who know me on LinkedIn will know I'm quite often the voice of reason when people say, oh, but we've developed this thing and it's biodegradable or it's compostable or it's recyclable. And I'll quite often sort of, in what conditions, you know, and where, and what's the chances of that happening? And blah, 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 blah. And the same for repair, you know, our product is repairable. Well, is it really? You know, where, etc. So I'm fascinated by that. I also, safety popped into my head as well, as Alice, when you were talking about that, because that's one of the big concerns. I do quite a lot of work with product brands, and one of the concerns they've got, particularly larger appliances, is people reusing and repairing items really that shouldn't be on the market or should pass their best or whatever. So then would there be room for that sort of thing as well? Some safety?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of a digital product label, is that it's basically endless and it's editable and updatable in real time. And because
of course,
if you use a GS1 approved supplier for your QR codes, for example, you'll also have access to a GS1 resolver service. And what that means is that you can scan the QR code in the UK, get English language content UK information, take it on a plane to Spain, scan the exact same QR code over there, and our resolver service will make sure you get Spanish language and Spanish market information. So it's really versatile, and moving to digital ways of communicating with customers is absolutely future-proofing your business for what's coming down the line.
I think what is critical about DPP is a lot of companies see it as a nuisance, like, oh, we have to comply with DPP, we have to put a QR code on or via RFID do it. But there are so many opportunities with a DPP QR code or to connect with your consumer. Besides giving them the legal information that is now set by legislation on DPP, because now it's limited to a little bit of information like mileage, has how it's traveled, what it's made. But as Alice said, the opportunities to communicate with your consumer via DPP, either with a QR code, with RFID, with any other technology, is vast. So you create these connection moments with your consumer, and that's what
changing everything.
Exactly, is the most important thing for a brand, for a company, creating connection and keeping that connection. And because it's interchangeable, as Alice said, today you can link them back to the page, but tomorrow you can add an additional nice video on how to reuse it, or the day after you can tell them, okay, you're scanned in the UK, these are the official repair people for these types of appliances.
I mean, I love it, Inga, I love it, but I'm also thinking, I've got my devil on my shoulder here of companies who may not particularly want to help customers. And how do I put this? I mean, it's been mentioned, single use. I think Ranjit mentioned it right at the beginning, you know, single use products. Whilst there is a strong, you know, desire to want those to be recycled or recyclable, I just think it's going to open things up. You know, it's almost like that transparency we've never had, where we've, you know, sometimes the consumer is treated a little bit as a dumb consumer. You know, it's just buy stuff, don't ask questions, just buy stuff. And now I think that transparency is really going to challenge some brands. Inga, I want to come back to you because there's a couple of specific questions on RFID. One is about cost. So Ronald asks, wouldn't the cost of RFID deter companies from using them? Can you give us a view on how companies are kind of integrating this cost?
If you would have asked this question 20 years ago, yes, when the industry was emerging, but the cost of RFID have gone down so dramatically. And the fact that RFID has now more use cases than just that inventory, but it helps with supply chain management. It can help with DPP in combination with a printed QR code. And And in general, the cost of this technology have gone down to such a level, and that's why you see, in theory, all big global apparel retailers have adopted the technology, including big groceries chains are starting to adopt the technology for all their use cases. So that tells you that the costs have gone down, and it is not high-end, high-cost product anymore.
Right. Okay, great. And a further question on that while we're talking about RFID. In waste management environments where RFID tags may be exposed to moisture, compaction, contamination, what durability standards exist and backup identification methods? So I presume this is at the when you get to end of life and this RFID tag's been in my bin for 3 weeks and it's been smushed together with everything else and it's been compacted in a lorry. What happens, Inga? How does that information get extracted?
Well, that all depends indeed on the form factor of the RFID item, and it all depends on what type of item was it at. Are we talking about a single-use RFID? Are we talking about an RFID that's for reusables, like we see now, reusable tableware being used in fast food restaurants and festivals? They're tagged with RFID. Well, those are very much protected by the product. Yes, of course, if you take an RFID hang tag that was on the clothing, you take it off. So it's a little bit, what do you mean? Is it more the question of the tag on itself or the tag attached to a product? Because if you want to have an RFID to a product fully embedded to be useful for recycle then you can select a completely different form factor than what you would do for a hang tag or a sticker that's on the outside of the packaging. I think that's also where with the DPP, and I think that's the same for a smart packaging or a digital packaging with a printed QR code. What technology do you do? Where do you put it on the product to make sure it truly lasts for the product life cycle?
Wow. Yeah. And that could be anything from minutes to decades, right? Depending on the product. Fascinating.
So that's also why, because a lot of times technologies are combined. So you have RFID with printed information. So if the printed information fails, you could read the RFID. If the RFID fails, you can read the printed information. It's always the case that you will have a combination of the two.
Interesting.
If you're talking about RFID.
Yeah, do you want to come in there, Alice, on this kind of combination of technologies? So
there's a good example that we were involved, or we still are involved with a UK online grocery retailer called Ocado, who some of the attendees might have heard of. They have a reusable solution for long life store cupboard products like pasta, rice, and also non-food laundry detergent powder. And you can order those products in these rather large canisters to be delivered to your home with your online shopping order. And then you decant the product into your own storage jars, and you can return their canister back on your next when your next delivery is dropped off. You can send it back to their depot to be washed and refilled and then shipped out to the next customer. Those reusable canisters have both our QR codes on the label to support with consumer education and information. They have a fully branded product page behind each of the QR codes that Ocado manage with marketing messages and competitions and as I said, videos and education. And the canisters also have an RFID chip in them, and they are used for complementary reasons, so tracking and tagging the canisters through the supply chain. So yeah, it's I think Inga's absolutely right. Yeah, in some instances, it does make sense to have both tag solutions made available, but as Inga said, it depends on your product, what your supply chain conditions are, what you're trying to achieve by tagging and tracing this packaging. So yeah,
it's fascinating just talking to you, and it feels like very much the holy grail. for circularity. Would you agree? I mean, is that why you went into this world, Alice? Is this that you do see this as the holy grail?
It's a funny sort of story. How did I get into this? Well, as I said, I was working for the Global Standards Agency, GS1, back in 2021, when I also had two very young children that ate a lot of yogurt. They still eat a lot of yogurt. And I was rinsing my yogurt pots out late one night in the sink, and I thought, it's better be worth it. Like, what is going to happen to these yogurt pots when I put them in the recycling bin? Where do they go? And I was just putting a strategy together to improve the adoption of GS1 global standards in the market. And then it just occurred to me, actually, if you could get some kind of tag solution onto what should be highly recyclable packaging and prove that it gets into the recycling centre, it would give consumers trust, it would give brands valuable data.
Information,
That's how the thought process went. And
from the humble yogurt pot. It's probably a petit filou, I expect.
I can't remember, but it's why at Polytag we obviously specialise in GS1 QR codes, the digital link QR code standard, but we've also developed our own GS1 compliant tag solution, which we apply with brands using an invisible UV ink that is detected only in recycling centres in the UK at the moment, but we have opportunities to extend across Europe. And those invisible UV tags, if anybody visits our website, you can see photographs of them. They are also now being used as a trigger to deliver enhanced sortation of plastics. So we're working with various optical sorter manufacturers, and they have been able to include a trigger prompt from a UV tag that will eject target material using their optical sort capability, but acting on features of the packaging that you can't see using optical sorter alone. For example, you can include in the invisible tag whether it is food grade plastic or non-food grade plastic. And so using a combination of the optical sort capability and the data in an invisible tag, we have now proven you can eject food grade PP into its own bunker. We have also proved that you can eject flexible plastics with a certain melt flow temperature into their own bunker. And so we're sort of really pushing the frontier of like mechanical recycling, but improving it and optimizing it with this UV tag solution that I just talked about. So yeah, that's all because of the yogurt pots.
Yeah,
well, to be honest, the fact that you said yogurt pots, I think that's what you said. It's consumer awareness of what is going on and what is possible. Because as you said, I sometimes try to be the very good person and sort out everything, and then my kids have dumped everything in the rubbish bin, and I take out the stuff in the rubbish bin and sort it. And indeed, you're like, okay, I'm sorting it now. How do I know that all the plastic that I've sorted will not end up somewhere back into the normal, the landfill?
Well, I mean,
it really get recycled.
The stats say everything, don't they? Like, I think it's between 6 and 9% of all plastics globally get genuinely recycled, and recycled is often used incorrectly,
and even that means a lot of things.
Most plastics are actually getting downcycled. That is, they start off as a drinks bottle and they get turned into a drain pipe. And so some people would say, oh, that's recycling. It's not, technically it's not recycling. In my mind, recycling is bottle to bottle several times before you then enter sort of downcycling process to maintain the value as long as you possibly can. But even downcycling isn't very common. Most of it, unfortunately, is getting burned or buried or badly.
It's all about the value for me. And it's all about value. That's why I went into circularity in the first place, because it just seemed so bleedingly obvious that there was all this value. Wanting to, crying out. And a couple of people have said in the chat, this is just an idea that's just taken a long time to come to fruition, probably because materials were cheap, if we're honest about it. With rising oil prices, all that sort of thing, maybe the lens will change a little bit, and with extra legislation. But I think it's throwing things wide open. Sal's put an interesting comment in the chat about we had no name for this. We had no language. We didn't know. We were in the dark, not necessarily in a cynically negative way, but we just didn't have that. The closest we had was the triangle with a number in it, to know what a material was. And he's right. When you start a new vocabulary and people have something, they have a QR code that tells them something. They have a mode of talking about it. Oh, this is it. Oh, did you know? Oh, this is a thing. It's exactly the same with all sustainability until we start talking about it. And they say here, once a market has words, it starts to think, then it starts to move. And I get the feeling, actually, we feel like we've been at this for a while, but actually we're still quite early in terms of where this could go. I'm sort of hesitant to ask you both, but what is AI going to do to where we are now? Is it a case of jet propelled with AI, or is it a while before the two things can start to talk to each other? Inga, do you want to come in?
Well, I remember being on a trade show or an exhibition, I think it was last year in Barcelona, where I sat in on indeed how AI can help the recycling stream from identifying products, objects that are going past a recycling stream or a waste management plant, to say it like that. But I think everything with AI is they need to get good data in. And as Alice said, that data can come from a QR code, that can come from an RFID, that can come from an invisible QR code or an invisible marker claiming knowing what the product is. So AI is the magic word at the moment, I think, in any business, in any industry. But I think by now people also understand that AI needs data and that data needs to be correct.
Pour data in, pour data out. Yeah.
Yeah, we use a different term in the Netherlands because we're a little bit more direct, but indeed, pour data in, pour data out.
Go on, you can share it here.
No worries. So I think that's where we are now on that verge that technologies can give AI that data that they need. And DPP is a very good example. I think the biggest challenge that most companies have with DPP is gathering the information that DPP requires. Where was it produced? What was the ingredients? How much distance has it traveled? To be honest, all these types of things, most brand owners or company owners don't know it, but the people who produce it might know it, but that information never gets end up with them. That's what DPP is now facilitating. And once that's facilitating, you have data with which indeed AI can start working its magic with, to say it like that. But AI on itself, then it's...
Well, that's the danger, I guess. If we went from, and those of us who've had the joy of visiting a waste management plant or a recycling plant, if we tried to get AI to speak to that now, it'd just be literally a mess, like you say, pour data in. Just carrying on that theme, a very, very topical question from Max. How is that data stored for digital passports, and who pays for that, especially for longer life products? So, oh goodness me, it sits in the cloud somewhere, right? But there's an ownership question here. There's a longevity thing. Inga, can you help Max out with that?
Well, I think I have a feeling, and I'm not a DPP expert. We have a DPP expert in our company who's a sustainability manager. She's full, and I'm using the cheat sheet that she sent me on DPP. I don't think that is agreed yet.
Okay, interesting.
Of course, DPP is focused on collecting, and the producer needs to have that data so that they can share that via the...
And they own their own data, right?
They own it. But if you then talk about recycling or repair or reuse, the company who will repair it, recycle it, or reuse it is not the same as the company who produced it. So how can that company access all the additional data that is necessary for their step of the process, which might not be available for a consumer, but should be available for a repair person or a recycle person? And I think that's maybe Alice is more into it, but that's my understanding, that's still Because having a big data, everybody would love to have one big data cloud where all the brands, all the companies put in their data. But can you imagine companies doing that? They will never do that. They will never share everything in one platform.
No, we're having the same conversations with repair, and we all know the sort of humble instruction booklet that we get, and the how to put your whatever your wardrobe together or whatever, and that's where it ends. But we certainly don't have the intricacies that you might need, for example, to repair an electronic item or whatever. And organisations like iFixit and others have been kind of hacking those and making their own repair. And it was a massive issue in COVID, actually. I was working in healthcare with a couple of organisations, and we had this big delays in repair to things like, monitors for people and respiration equipment, that sort of thing. And it was because the repair instructions were all locked up, literally sort of in someone's repair manual, So I think there's an endless opportunity, but you've highlighted something there. And thank you for that question, Max. Alice, did you want to come in on that? Because obviously we've got some barriers. We've highlighted some barriers. It feels like there's a few use cases which is sort of moving forward more quickly. I guess I'm going to come around to, we're coming up to sort of the top of the hour, but what would your recommendations be for anybody listening today if they kind of want to start to adopt this technology or take it forward in their businesses or indeed in their circular kind of ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, Inga's right. The digital product passport isn't fully formed and locked down in terms of how it needs to be formatted, delivered, accessed by consumers. But there are some things that we do know will be true. One is you can be assured that GS1 global standards will be powering these digital product passports.
Okay.
And so anybody interested in exploring the use and introduction of DPPs into their business need to make sure they're working with a GS1 approved partner, of which Polytag is one. And then the other thing you can be assured is that, as Ing said again, there will be a need to flow data from a range of data sources onto a page, a product page that consumers can access. And so you also need to make sure that you're working with a platform solution provider that has an interoperable ecosystem so that they can connect all of these different data sources together and organize the information and then present it in a digital product passport page behind a QR code or an RFID tag. And again, the Polytag, very experienced with that kind of thing. We've worked with global partners and we have global clients that we are supporting with gathering the respective bits of information and data that they need to present in a format behind the QR code that consumers can access. So yeah, it might not be totally clear yet, but yeah, those would be the two main factors that I think need to be considered at this stage. And you've got to start somewhere. Again, I'm using my elephant analogy. Many of our clients that we're working with are just picking one category and starting small.
Yeah,
and we're learning how their
What's
businesses work, and as they get confident and their cross-functional teams, and because that's another thing to say, this is not a simple thing to deliver. It is often a complicated program.
I think it's a game changer. I really do.
Have to cut through lots of levels in an organization, and we're really experienced at delivering that with complex teams. But yeah, we often start small and learn.
Well, I
That's
think
always been
also,
a challenge.
I think that's the biggest challenge that, as you said, that Alice pointed out, that cross-functional. It's the biggest challenge within a company. People that are now starting to talk about DPP are almost already too late. Even though the legislation is not finalized, it's not fully clear what is the information mandatory in phase 1, phase 2, etc. If you are starting now in your company about stuff like apparel, so textile will have to be started. It will be starting at 2027. So that's now. If you think that you can get this done in a few weeks, unfortunately, I think you will be shocked the amount of work and the amount of information that you're missing. And I think I said that before. That's I think the the fall or the pitfall for a lot of customers. I think, oh, once the legislation is done, we will print a QR code on it and then we will have all the information and it will be ready. I think that's where the difficulty comes in. And DPP is a European legislation. I know because we are part of that whole discussion in the United Nations Transparency Protocol. DPP is also being discussed at international level to see, okay, can we get those more that global standardization that we've been talking about, which is critical for most of our customers who work on a global level.
Yeah. No, it sounds to me that there's an enormous amount happening, and credit to both of you for being so on the pulse. Honestly, it's fascinating to see how fast it's moving. I just want to wrap up with a couple of kind of really specific questions. One is about impact. So we're all sat here saying, this is going to change things. This is going to blow the lid off. This is what circularity has been waiting for. Because the amount of projects I've done, and to your point, Alice, about cross-cutting, where it's manual, it's just physically impossible to do those things. And circularity is a pilot and then never goes any further. But how do we start to measure the impact, right? Because it's just vast, isn't it? So I just wondered if either of you are having impact-led conversations in terms of, go down this road and it will have, I don't know, an improvement on recycling rates of 10 or 20%, or is that too early? Or are they not the metrics that we're using?
I think it all comes back to commerciality, and we often say, to our prospective clients, transparency does pay. It pays on three fronts. It pays because you can build trust with your consumers, and they feel like they are well informed at point of purchase, and they feel that they are buying from a sustainably focused company. And countless reports will tell you that businesses that are seen to be acting sustainably are very successful at growing loyal consumer base. That's the first point. The second point is, if you close the data gap, and an end of life of product and packaging is a black hole mostly, but if you can shine a light on what is happening to your product or your packaging at end of life, you've got an opportunity to then do step 3, which is recover your assets. And if you can successfully recover your assets, if you believe they are at end of life, and most things do have a residual value, then you can also benefit commercially. Your business can benefit commercially, either because you keep reusables in circulation longer, because you're able to recover critical metals from small electronics, because your plastic is actually being sorted into more valuable fractions in recycling centres and being used to make the same packaging again, etc., etc. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but transparency does pay, and circularity is commercial, and we talk about those 3 aspects regularly with our clients, and we see it. It's real.
Yeah, for me, it's all about revenue loops. It's always been about revenue loops. And if you're trying to scratch around in the dirt to make some money out of something that only had a couple of pence value in it anyway, and then you can't find it, and it's a needle in the haystack, it's not unsurprising that these things don't work. If you are able to track, a material halfway across the world, which has got value, that is massive. I think that changes the game, sort of moves that whole concept of resource efficiency into a whole new, into a whole new sort of century. So I'm quite excited about it. Inge, how would you kind of summarize what we've discussed today in terms of, I'm sort of interested to hear about the impact of RFID. Is that leaning into carbon? Is that leaning into waste avoided? Like, what's the big...
It's more, I think, in waste avoided.
Yeah.
In combination with circularity in certain business models, like for apparel industry, RFID helps them for waste avoided. So not overproduction, making sure you only have the right product at the right time in the right location. Also making sure that you know what is left, what am I going to do with, where I'm going to send it. In the reusable industry, it's about that reuse making sure that a product is also being reused, because it's very nice to have a reusable cup, but if nobody reuses it or it ends up somewhere else, then it doesn't make any sense. So you want to have data on your reuse. So I think those are the main values where RFID can truly contribute into that technology. And now with the DPP, we see that combination coming, that it can also help with consumer interactivity, with storing data, with providing data back to the DPP platform, so that consumers have that awareness. And as Alice said, it's all about creating awareness with your consumers who are much more confident of what they think is okay in the world and it's not okay in the world than that we were 30 years ago. So creating that communication connection with your consumers brings you the value of them being loyal consumers, but also them appreciating what you are doing with that data.
Amazing. I'm going to retitle this webinar The Missing Link. Okay. You've done a beautiful job, both of you, of just explaining. I came into this not knowing a huge amount of this. I feel so much more informed. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's stuck with us for the full hour, others who have asked for the recording. It was very interesting. Thank you, Max. Thank you for all your questions. I think we need to come back in 12 months' time and give everyone an update. I have a feeling this is going to move very, very quickly.
Yep.
Thank you, Inga, and thank you, Alice. Over to you, Akanta.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you, Inga and Alice, for taking time out. I think we have far more informed than ever with this discussion. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience on this. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and on our website. We request you all to please stay updated on our future events. Please subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media. And I have already shared the LinkedIn profiles of our panelists as well. You all can get back to them, connect with them personally for networking as well. Thank you so much, all. Have a good day ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
That's amazing. We got very good response on the chats.
Yeah,
I
it's
would say
great.
the response was amazing.
Good.
Very good. Thanks, Inga.
Thanks, Emma. Well, nice to see you. Nice to
Great to
meet you
yeah.
and being
Yeah, it's a
part of
great
this.
topic. Really
Thank
good
you.
topic. And I'll put it on the list for kind of 12 months time. We'll come at it from a different angle. I think everything's going to move really, really quickly. And it's so useful to have, global audience. I'm sure everyone got a lot out of that.
Good. Super. Hey,
Great
speak to you
format.
soon.
Thanks.
Thank
See you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Akanksha.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you
That
so
went
much.
well. I didn't need the second poll. It's fine. The questions were good enough. And yeah, I don't know if do you do analysis of the different countries, because that one's going to be amazing.
We combined it, we collated, but not for every webinar. But then I think we can do that, Emma, if you really want us to do it. Then probably we
I
can.
just thought it might make a nice bit of social media, because it's just, it's unusual to get such a good. It's really unusual because of time zones to get kind of South America and Asia and Europe, isn't it? That's quite unusual.
Apparently, we're targeting to get somebody from Australia. We're planning to do one webinar on e-waste, primarily only from Australia, because that's one region, that's one continent that we've not been able to tap in, and that's primarily also because of the time zones. But
we've had a couple of Australian panelists on repair, didn't we? Do you remember but it is tough. It's like midnight for them.
Yes. But this time, I think we were trying to get the audience as well to tap into the market to understand what they are trying to say or feel or whatever on this particular topic. So we're thinking and hoping that probably we'll have good enough, obviously the late wee hours for us, but then we're trying to tap in this time. Yes.
Yeah, nice. Good. Okay, well, if I can help, let me know. I don't mind getting up at midnight and doing a funny time of day. That was brilliant. Good stuff. I will see you again soon. Thanks for your help.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead.
Bye.
So much for this. Thank you.
Bye.